If you've recently been suspended on Etsy and Etsy hasn't emailed you and you're probably very frustrated right now and you're wondering, okay, why did Etsy suspend me? What's going on? Why even? I want to say that I've been suspended on Etsy twice now, and it's not something I'm very proud of, but the reasons why I was suspended was something that was very simple and a very easy fix on my Etsy store, and I wanted to go over exactly the different types of suspensions you can get on Etsy, especially as a new store. A lot of new stores in their first month to second month on Etsy get suspended just because you don't have a long-term history with Etsy, and they're still kind of interviewing you in a way in your store on if you're not spam and if you're a legitimate real store. So getting suspended on Etsy in your first 2 months is very, very normal, unfortunately, and I hope this video eases some of your guys' questions. If you are completely new to Etsy, you just got suspended, and you found this video on the internet and you're like, okay, please answer my questions, and we're gonna go over what type of suspensions there are, what to do about those suspensions, and what your next steps are. And at the end of the video, stick around because I do have a freebie at the very end for you guys who are looking to do more with your Etsy stores. So guys, before we get started, I did want to mention and preface that I do not work for Etsy here, so I can't speak on their behalf on why your store is suspended. However, I can give you my own experience on why Etsy stores get suspended so easily. And there are actually 3 different types of suspensions, and one of the types of suspensions can get you permanently suspended. So we're gonna go over all 3 types, and we're gonna start with number 1, which I call the Etsy algorithm wire tripping suspension. And this first type of suspension is actually really easy to do in your first month or 2 on Etsy, and it's very common. I'd say I get a few emails every single week about new stores getting suspended for a temporary amount of time. Generally, when you get suspended, maybe your first month or 2 on Etsy, it might just be for a few different reasons. The first reason that I see that Etsy stores get suspended for Etsy algorithm wire tripping is they are being too spammy, and this is something that's kind of really silly that the Etsy algorithm does, but if you post way too many listings, and we're talking maybe like 20 to 30 plus listings in a given day, you may get suspended just because Etsy might think that you are spamming their system. However, to be quite honest, when you're a new store on Etsy, you want to get a high amount of listings on your Etsy store when you first begin. So this is a very easy wire to trip that I like to say, because a lot of people do this. I did it when I first began, and this was the reason why my store got suspended, and it got suspended for 2 weeks. I ended up emailing Etsy, and Etsy brought back my store up. However, this still does happen to so many people, and really it's just kind of an auto flag that the Etsy system does. This is just my conspiracy theory on it, but I don't think Etsy has a human that has been suspending accounts for being spammy, so to speak. I think it's just the Etsy algorithm's bots kind of just taking down stores that are just doing too many listings in one day. I think that's what really happens. So that's why it's so easy to just email Etsy and say, hey, I don't know why my store got taken down, but I'm an authentic person, you know, I'm real, I'm a human, I'm not spam, and this is my real store. A lot of the times, if your store comes back up, generally I have seen even in my own store that if I keep uploading listings at the same rate as the first time I got suspended, I do not get suspended again, because again, that flag was manually removed by an actual human that works for Etsy, and that's how my store ultimately came back up. So if that happens to you and you guys get brought back up, I think you're fine to keep uploading listings at the same rate. That's at least my experience with that. The second reason you can get taken down, so to speak, for wire tripping is just by having inaccurate data on your Etsy account. So maybe your name and last name was incorrectly filled out. Maybe your social security is incorrect. Maybe you have your financial information incorrect as well. I would double check your routing number, your account numbers, and all that has to do with that, because that's a big factor in new stores getting kind of shut down or suspended in their first few months on Etsy, especially if you make a sale and Etsy's trying to kind of pay you back. If they can't really put that money into a bank account because it's incorrectly filled out, that could be a reason as well. And then along with that, your tax information is something to look into, because if you get a K-1099 at the end of the year, Etsy has to report that. And if you don't fill in the information for them to file that on your behalf, then you can get suspended as well for that. That goes into the third reason that you can get suspended, is if you have an overdue balance on your Etsy account. Let's say you haven't made sales in your first month or so, and that's pretty normal. A lot of new Etsy stores don't get sales in their first month. Don't get discouraged unless you have like a huge social media backing or you have a lot of friends and family members purchasing your items. You know, that's generally when you'll get your first few sales in your first month on Etsy. However, if you don't have any sales in that first month, and let's say you paid for 100 different new listings to go up on your store, that's about $20 that you owe Etsy. And if you don't end up paying that to Etsy, then you'll get suspended on Etsy, of course. The final reason that you can trip the Etsy algorithm wire, so to speak, is by using multiple IP addresses on one account. So let's say you have your family members helping you with your Etsy store, maybe a friend. Etsy will actually suspend your account for security reasons. They may think that you're being hacked at the end of the day. So that's another reason that you can kind of trip the Etsy algorithm wire, so to speak, and get suspended. So now you guys know all the reasons on how you can kind of trip the Etsy algorithm wires, and you don't want to do this, but it does happen to new stores, and I know it's frustrating, but just have faith your store will come back up. A lot of the times, if you were suspended for any of these reasons that I listed to trip the Etsy algorithm wire, then your store generally gets unsuspended quite easily once a actual human looks over your store and sees that everything is correct and there's no real threat to Etsy by you having your store open. The second type of suspension is Etsy house rule violation suspension. And this is the type of suspension that can get your store shut down for good. You can never recreate your store again through Etsy with your first, last name, social, all of that. You just can't create a store again. I'm gonna go over the reasons that you can violate the Etsy house rules. You never wanna do this, so this is really good for you guys to watch as well to figure out other ways that you can get suspended and how to prevent that. The first way to get suspended and violate Etsy house rules is just creating a second account and favoriting an item on your original store, or maybe you purchase from your own store, and that is a huge Etsy house violation, guys. And I know, like, I understand in the first month or two on Etsy, a lot of people don't see any sales at all, and for some time you may be thinking, okay, well, maybe if I just, you know, buy my own item, then maybe I will get a sale, and then that will help me in the Etsy algorithm. That'll boost all of my listings in the algorithm and make my shop look better for any new customer that wants to purchase something from my store. And this is a really, really bad thing for your store. And as much as maybe a new store, because I had the same thought when I first started my store. I was like, what if I just bought my own item? And I'm so happy I didn't do that, because my store wouldn't be here today and I wouldn't have made over $300,000 in revenue if I thought that way and I ended up buying from my own store. So I hope this is a sign for you guys to not buy from your own store. And even if you have friends and family over, let's say at your house, don't have them buy from your store at your house. So if these are legitimate purchases, you don't want the same IP address on your Etsy store when maybe a friend or a family member purchases from you, because again, that's going to trip the Etsy algorithm. However, what happens if your family does purchase under your same IP address, you can still email Etsy and say, you know, this was my grandfather who purchased from me. I think it's still fair that they wanted to purchase an item from me, and that is completely okay. As far as I know, with Etsy, generally they will unsuspend stores for that, but if you personally purchased your own items, then that's a big no-no. Just stay away from it, guys. I can't stress that enough. So guys, the second way to be suspended by violating the Etsy house rules is simply infringing on a trademark or copyright. And I see so many new stores do this, and I try to warn everyone because it is unfortunately unfortunately very easy to do. You may be thinking of a phrase that you heard from a movie that's trademarked and you put it on a t-shirt and you didn't have that malicious thought to do that, but you accidentally infringed on something that's already trademarked. And that happens a lot, and don't feel bad that you've done that, because literally you can trademark anything nowadays, and really it's people just trying to kind of claim their territory on a logo or design or graphic and kind of legally scare others to not use the same graphic or design. Some of the case. That's just my take on it. But with that being said, guys, a lot of things that you might not think of are actually trademarked, and it's really good to conduct trademark research on your own for every single design that you create, guys. And when I say that, I know that sounds like a lot, but if you get that into your routine of creating new designs on Etsy, then you will make sure and double check every single design that you create. So the easiest way to check your trademarks is simply by going to uspto.gov, and there is a TESS trademark system where you can search up any type of phrase or word. You can even search up certain logos, which that is really hard to search up, but it can be done on your own. The other way that you can research your types of phrases or designs that you create is simply by just having a lawyer check it for you. I know there are also Fiverr services now that you can pay a few dollars to a certain fixed amount to get every type of phrase trademark search for you as well, if you really think that you are bad at trademark searching. However, like I said, it's easy to do on your own as well. And I actually have a t-shirt 101 workshop where I go over how I do my trademark searches and how I save a lot of money without paying for a lawyer to do that all for me. I'll link that in the description below if anyone is interested in that. But in that specific workshop, I go over how to design t-shirts, how to hop on trends for t-shirts, how to research for those trends, and all that you could possibly learn. That goes along with my Etsy and print on demand crash course as well. So I teach a whole course on Etsy and print on demand, and that is kind of my niche on YouTube. But I teach a lot about Etsy and the algorithm as well. So it's something, if you guys are interested in, you can of course learn. But to go along with trademark infringement and copyright infringement, what's really important as well is the types of search terms that you're using. So if you have a trademarked phrase or logo or brand, let's say in your title, your tags, or your description, that counts as a violation of Etsy house rules, guys. And a lot of people like to say it doesn't, but a lot of those people are not on Etsy anymore. So I hope that kind of proves that statement there. Just don't put trademarked words in your titles, tags, designs. You don't want to use anything that's related to a brand or trademark unless you purchase the license yourself, which can cost up to thousands of dollars, guys. Even using Disney, I see it all the time on Etsy, is people using graphics from Disney on t-shirts and saying Disney. They're even using fonts that are trademarked fonts by Disney as well in their Etsy listings. So this is a huge, again, no, guys. Just stay away from doing anything with trademarks. That's my best advice for anyone who's new on Etsy. Along with trademark and copyright infringement, we do need to talk about intellectual property infringement, and this is super important on Etsy as well. I've seen this time and time again. A lot of new Etsy stores will go onto Etsy and they will copy another store's bestsellers line for line, color by color, graphic by graphic. And if you guys have been on my channel for a while, you guys know why I don't share my Etsy store that's done over 6 figures on Etsy with print on demand in the past few years. The main reason, guys, why I don't share it is because people copy my bestsellers and they copy my store exactly when I've shared my store in the past. I've learned my lesson and I don't share my store anymore, and that's only due to the copycat stores. And let me tell you guys, those copycat stores are actually suspended on Etsy permanently now because they copied so many other stores, not just mine. And that's something you need to think about when you are looking at bestsellers and you're like, wow, this is really selling. This is a really nice design. I want to create something just like this. And although you can get inspired by someone else's design, that doesn't mean you have to copy it exactly how they did it. I think that it's great to pull inspiration from other bestsellers on Etsy, but it's not a good thing to copy someone's designs completely because they put a lot of hard work into those designs and finding their own design style. And by you stealing it, you're basically crediting all of their hard work as yours. And that is intellectual property infringement. That is a huge no-no. I do not suggest ever doing that. I like to say there is a fine line between pulling inspiration from someone and copying someone completely. These are two completely different things, and you should never copy someone else completely, and that will get you permanently banned from Etsy. The third way that you can violate Etsy house rules is by having anything related to guns, anything related to violence, or anything even related to COVID. So that's something that I personally actually got a flag for. Was during the pandemic, I made a few masks, and in the mask description, I put COVID-19, pandemic, so have you in that listing, and my listing actually got taken down. Etsy messaged me and stated, you know, since you are relating your listing to COVID-19, we had to remove it, and just so you know that your account does have a flag on it now due to this. However, I clapped back at Etsy because, guys, I'm gonna spill some tea. This is gonna be some tea. I need a close-up for this. So guys, I'm gonna spill some tea here on me and Etsy because I had a little bit of a back and forth with Etsy about this. Because let me tell you guys, my listing got flagged, and the listing that got flagged was actually a already deleted listing that I posted a year prior when I first tried making my Etsy store and it failed first initial time. So when that deleted listing got flagged and Etsy emailed me about this, I was so annoyed. The first thing I did, guys, is I went on Etsy and I typed in COVID-19 t-shirt. The first listing that I found that was a bestseller I clicked into, and in the title itself, it said COVID-19 in the title. And it was a shirt that just said vaccinated on it. And then I scrolled to the bottom, I looked at the tags, it said COVID-19 in the tags. And I screenshotted this, I screenshotted the title, I screenshotted the listing itself. I sent it to Etsy in all of my screenshots, all of my proof, and I said, why is my account flagged? And this best-selling t-shirt has COVID-19 in the title and the tags. Why do I have basically a flag on my account? And Etsy responded, I'm not even gonna attach the email because it frustrates me so much, but Etsy literally responded in kind of, I'm just gonna say this in a vague way, but they essentially said in that email, we will consider this for the future of your store, but for now, just know you cannot create any more COVID-19 or anything related to the pandemic items. However, I didn't create any other COVID-19 or pandemic related items after that listing, and I knew it had COVID related terms in it. That's why I deleted it in the first place. I just wanna say that's why I have tea with Etsy, and as much as I love Etsy as a platform, I don't think they're that fair as they try to be. And I'm not gonna get too much into it, but Etsy is like a micromanager sometimes. And when they try to micromanage my store, when I know I'm good at what I do, I know that I'm ethical, that's when it kind of gets me. Etsy gets me sometimes. We're gonna stop venting and complaining here, and I just wanna let you guys know that if Etsy does that to you, you better do your own research, get screenshots, and send it to them. But besides that, in a long explanation, do not have anything related to guns, violence, or even COVID-19, anything like that that's sensitive subjects, usually will get flagged on Etsy, and you can get suspended permanently on Etsy from that. So guys, the third way that you can get suspended on Etsy is literally by Etsy ghosting you. And I think this is the funniest / most annoying reason and suspension that I have found through my time on Etsy, but Etsy literally ghosts people a lot. And by ghosting, they will suspend your store. They will not email you at all. Like literally the stories I've heard about Etsy ghosting people and suspending people, they suspend them, they won't tell them the reason why, they won't send an email, they just ghost them. They used to have an Etsy support phone number. I'm not sure if they still have it, but there's videos of people calling Etsy and Etsy just hanging up on them once they find out what type of account they have or the name of the account. So this is something that's frustrating, and actually it happens to a lot of people who are on YouTube and share their store on YouTube. And this is one of the reasons why I do not share my store on YouTube as well. There's so many reasons, but one of the other reasons is to protect my actual online business. I do not share it on YouTube because I have seen other stores get suspended, and part of me, this is just a conspiracy theory, guys. Just humor me for a moment and listen to it, but part of me thinks that if you're too honest on your YouTube channel about Etsy, Etsy in turn will shut down your store because you're being too honest. You're talking about the tea and real things that happen with Etsy, and Etsy doesn't like that. So they just suspend you. I'm just saying, guys, this is like, I legitimately think that's a real thing though, that if you're an influencer and you own an Etsy store, Etsy will do that. And they literally own your store in a way. It's a third-party platform. So if they don't want you on Etsy, then they can easily just take you off Etsy. That's one of the reasons why I say that, you know, if you're doing Etsy as a full-time business, just make sure that you're grounded in other places in your life, that you have a backup income stream or savings or anything like that, because Etsy should not be your only reliable source of income. You should always have a second type of income stream. And it's funny because I say that and I make a full-time amount of profit on Etsy and my business runs just fine. However, I have seen it happen to other people, and I'm not blind to what could happen on Etsy. So that's why I suggest always having some type of second side hustle. Maybe Etsy is your side hustle, which is great, and you still have that main source of income. That's the most important part about doing Etsy and print on demand, or Etsy and a handmade business, that I can give to people as well. At the end of this video, guys, if you are still suspended on Etsy, your number one thing that you need to do today is to email Etsy, because a lot of the times if your account is suspended, then you probably can't log into your account, you can't access the help center on Etsy, so you can email the Etsy support. I'll put the email down below. I know it used to be integrity@etsy.com, I want to say, and now it's support@etsy.com. So again, check in the description below because that could always change from the time that I'm making this video. If you fall into the categories of tripping the Etsy algorithm wire, or you were ghosted by Etsy, generally, if you just contact them, they will bring your store back up within a few weeks time frame. However, if you violated the Etsy house rules, generally with trademark or IP infringement, 3 strikes, you're out for life on Etsy. They will never let you have an account with them again. However, again, if you maybe only did one of those things and you have screenshots as proof that you were being authentic and you didn't know about the Etsy house rules, sometimes they do unsuspend you for that. I've seen that as well, so it can't hurt shooting them an email. But in general, there's a lot of other places that you guys can sell on the internet now. There's of course Amazon, there's Shopify, there's building your own website. There's so many other ways that you can make money online with products that you know really sell, and hopefully this doesn't discourage anyone, but usually a lot of stores come back up within a few weeks, and I hope that helps some of you guys. Just be patient and understand that Etsy does get a lot of support emails, and it may take them time to kind of review your store and bring it back to life, so to speak. Besides that, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Check out my Etsy and print on demand crash course, link in the description of this video, and I will see you guys in the next video here. Stick around for the bloopers. Okay. Okay. So guys, sorry, retake, redo on that last one. Hair's just not doing it for me today. Sorry. So guys, I'm gonna repeat that.